Hello, welcome to Cozy Corner. Today we're gonna talk about a horror zine, a TTRPG collection of adventures called Inside Out, System Neutral. And also, in the spirit of horror featurettes, we're gonna talk about two books today. We're also gonna talk about SPLAT, who is a collection of articles about how to handle TTRPG horror in your table. So let's start. You ready? I think horror is a great genre for TTRPGs because different from other media like movies, TV shows, video games where you have a predetermined story that you need to follow, in a TTRPG you can really take into account everybody's sensitivity on the table. You can really tailor the story to everybody who is there and make it a pleasant experience, and you can explore very difficult themes and very horrific adventures and stories through a very safe and welcoming environment. For instance, I used to play a lot of Call of Cthulhu, and there was two types of groups. Some people who take everything with a much more comical, much more light-hearted kind of vibe. So they would laugh at the monsters, and this was maybe something that also for them, because they didn't want to really go to the more scary, tense role-playing vibe. So they preferred to just take everything lightly, and it was fun, and that was the table. And that's how everybody felt comfortable. But I also had another group that everybody was very into role-playing and feeling like that they were losing their minds and all the Cthulhu theme. So with that group we play a very different game, and it was the same system. But at the same time, the other side of the coin is that because it's so improvisational, it can go to places where people don't really want to go, and that's where safety tools are so important on RPGs. So for safety tools, the book has a couple of safety tools that they mention. They have the X card that you can tap an X or type an X on the chat so you can pass the scene. For instance, we have one little X card here. You can also have a green card. When you like a scene, you can always tap this card. For me, what I really like the traffic light system. It comes from the BDSM community. Basically, you have green, yellow, and red. So you can always tap your green card when you like a scene, you can tap your red card when you don't like a scene, and you can tap a yellow card to say, oh, this is okay, but we're going a bit too far, maybe let's step back a little bit. I think that's the best way, at least for me, because it's not just about the negative, just saying I don't want this. You also have the green where you can say, oh, this is really fun, I'm having fun. So the GM can always feel everybody in the room, say oh, this guy really likes this, you don't like that. And the yellow is very important too, because it's that in between where you know that you can go there but not too much. So I think that would be the best tool for safety. Another safety tool on the book is a list of things that might be triggering to people. Here is lines and veils, so you can say if you wouldn't cross the line or if you're kind of okay with that. I think the only problem of doing content warnings is that you might spoil your story, and a lot about horror is the unexpected. So I think a good idea is to send to your players a big list with a lot of possible triggers, and they can say green, yellow, or red. And then you always have this list while you're creating stories, so you can consult that. And if you're improvising, you can always check your list and be like, okay, I shouldn't go there because this person is not comfortable with that. So this way you don't spoil anybody, but you still have a lay of the land, you know where you can go and you cannot. Okay, so let's get into the book. First thing, I'll have all content warnings here so you can see on the screen. If there is something that you don't feel comfortable, feel free to skip this video. Also, I want to mention that I didn't play any of the adventures here. I just read through them, and that's my opinion. If I play the games, I will always make sure to mention before so you guys know that I have experience with it. There is 6 adventures here, or seeds for a game, and at the end there is a little table of weird and strange mutations. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is written by Jojo Ruiz, and the art is by Nick Tofani, and it's called Corners. So in the adventure you go through this dungeon and you face all these creatures, but at the end you discover that you are all just hallucinating and you are in the belly of a beast. You're going through its intestines. So it's a really fun, very thematic adventure, and it can be used on any system. You can use on fantasy, going through a dungeon. You can use on sci-fi, you're inside a spaceship. You can use on modern, maybe it's a cave that people are going. So there is very different applications for it, and also there is very fun stats. There is the vital organs of the beast, like the heart, the lungs, the brain, the stomach. And this, if you're playing fantasy, you could create creatures to represent that, and the players have to face it, but they're all hallucinating. So I think it's a really fun, really versatile module. The second adventure is called Disrupture. It's written by Etting, art by Cosmic Dream, and the map is by Alex the Map Maker. On this adventure, you are tasked to explore the Daybreaker, is this spaceship. And on this spaceship, there is an AI called Helios who kind of went crazy and started experimenting with this new substance. It's a substance called Nectar, who basically can transform technology and flesh, kind of mix them together. And there's all these crazy creatures that you need to face. There's also a lot of plot hooks, how to get to the ship, which I think is really fun. And the map is one of the highlights of the story, I think. The spaceship looks very interesting, it has kind of like these two corridors, these two orbital corridors that you can go across. And also I think I would play this on Alien. I think this would be really fun on Alien. Maybe you're going to a synthetics factory and this is happening on there. Because I think a lot of times when you're playing Alien, you're expecting an alien, so it would be really fun to face something else, to subvert people's expectation. I think that could be really fun for this one. So the next one is called the Shy Lampworker. It's written by Stephen Dewey and art by Trevor Henderson. On this one there is this kind of hag type creature. It's a very creepy setting. This creature makes you go through all these trials and you need to harm yourself to be able to pass through all that. I think this one is a little bit harder to play as a game because the characters need to disfigure themselves to keep passing these trials and figuring out. I think this could be a very nice setting for like a villain, for like a background of a creature. Or you can play as a one-shot, but there is very little agency for the characters here. So I think this can be used for a creepy inspiration or just to get your mind going. It's very scary. I think this is the most scary one of all of them in here. I think if you want to read something scary and kind of like disconcerting, maybe this is a good one. Yeah, I think that's kind of how I would take this one. The next one is called An Exploration of Flash Tailors. It's written by Salavier Nelson Jr. and art by Chloe Latchkey. This one is really fun. It's all from the perspective of the scientists who discovered these flash tailors. It's these creatures who kind of mend your skin. The art is really fun and it goes through how he figured out who these creatures are, their weakness, their capabilities, and how at the end he wants to be transformed almost. So there is kind of like the Fly vibe, which is a really fun movie. And I think this could be really fun to have as like, it's kind of like a mood you could have as something that your players find on a strange scientist locker, or maybe they find in a laboratory. So I think this one is really fun to just have as inspiration for a character. So the next one is Monstrous. It's written by Cassie Clark and art by Tess Stone. On this one player will play as the creature, as the monster, and the rest will be the survivors, and there will be a GM too, who will kind of manage all that. You roll a die and whoever gets the lowest is the monster, and the rest is the players. There is a table here for the appearance of the monster and some motivation. And also there is, each survivor will have some perks that they start the game with. They say you can choose your system here and create a monster based on that system. I think this one is the hardest one to run because I think it will be really hard to have a player as the monster. Just like logistics, like even they say here that you need to like chat with the person who is the monster in private to decide what they should do and where they should go. But just to run the game as a GM, I'm already suffering to imagine that like I need to have this person who doesn't know where this other person is, so the monster will do things and the other people will do things, but you cannot really meta game. And I don't know if you should separate both groups or have them together and ask them to not think about what's happening as their characters. So I think this one is really hard to run. It could be really fun to have this adventure on the table, but I think it requires a lot of the GM and all the players. For instance, if you get a too powerful monster, let's say like we were talking about Alien, if someone is an alien, and they can just kill someone with one attack and they wipe half of the party, what do you do now? So I think on this game you would have to have a plan B, C, and D just in case things happen. Because also as a GM, you can always control the story. You're like, okay, the story will begin like this, we'll have this median, we'll have this end. But when you have someone playing as the monster, what they want to do is just kill everybody, right? So they will try Act 1, kill everybody, and they might succeed. And now what's Act 2 and 3? So, but it could be really fun if you have the right people and the right mindset. But yeah, this is Monstrous. So the last one is called Mr. Twisted Incredible Flash Park. It's written by Sean Oxspring and art by Robin French. It's about this Mr. Twisted genetic modified creatures park. There is all this weird skin lion, there is a castle of meat, there is the bouncing ulcers. It's very, very disgusting and very strange, but basically you are visiting this park and things go south, everything gets screwed, and now you need to escape this park. All these creatures are on the loose. So it's all about you escaping this park. There's a whole game here. If you have like some little system light, you can just add to this and you can play. There is all these classes. You can be a scientist, a zookeeper, a tourist. So you have all these mutagens that you can take to try to survive the park, and they will transform you in some ways. It might help you, it might hinder you. So maybe you roll 5d10s and it will show what happened to you. So maybe you can get one wobbly tentacle who is split open from both of your legs. Also, there is a whole failure thing. If your monstrosity level reaches 10, you became unable to hold to your humanity and freak out. And I think this is really fun because there is also something that you need to contain with. You're like, am I becoming a monster or not? So there is a whole game on this one. And I think you can play with any system. You can play as in fantasy, that suits like a strange necromancer who is creating this park. Or you can play as like a sci-fi, this weird colony where people are experimenting with flesh. So I think this has a lot of possibilities, and also it can be very creepy or it can be really fun. So there is like a lot of ways of playing this, and I think this is what's really fun about a system neutral adventure, that you can put it whatever you want. You can add to your campaigns or you can play as one shots, and I think this ticks all the boxes. So I think this is a really fun adventure, and I would definitely, if I had to choose one to try, I would choose this one for sure. Last one is Jojo's Body Effects table. This one is a D100 table where just some strange things can happen to you, just body modifications. You can use this on your mothership or any other game that you're playing. There's kind of funny ones, there is more scary ones. Most of them are funny, but yeah, this is just like a little table that you can use in your games. And that's it. That's all the book. So yeah, this was Inside Out. But I think if you're picking Inside Out, I would recommend picking SPLAT. This is a collection of articles about horror in TTRPGs, as by Summoning Circle Press. Has different authors going through a lot of themes, like for instance how queer folk gravitate towards horror. He also talks about queer black perspectives, talks about non-racist monster stories, so like how to create your monsters to not follow classic tropes of having queer folk as villains or like having ableist monsters. So I think this is very interesting and very important. Also talks about consent in horror, which is super important, like we talk about safety tools. So I think picking up SPLAT is like a must for a GM who wants to run horror. So this will help you think about how you make your monsters and how you bring them to the table. So I think SPLAT is a great pick just to think about stories and how we make them and how to make them better. I think horror is a great genre for RPGs. I think it's really good to explore your fears and deal with things that are in the back of your mind. Like horror is a very universal, a very interesting way of thinking about your own psyche. For instance, for me, I really love body horror because of that. I have a very strange relationship with my body. Like when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I am celiac, but it took a long time for them to figure out that I was celiac. So I was a lot in hospitals, I was always in bed, I was always sick. I've had to do a lot of exams and people were like probing and I had to do surgery. So I always had like a strange relationship with my body. I could never do the things that I wanted to do as a kid. And I think that's why I end up like watching so many like body horror movies like Cronenberg, like Videodrome and like Scanners and like The Fly. That was like something that I really liked as a kid. And I think that's because it was a way of like understanding myself and my relationship with my body. So I think horror is a genre that lets you do that. Like even when I create games right now, on my latest game, Teddy Bear Holding a Freaking Machine Gun, it has some sort of relationship with body horror too. Not exactly, but is a future where people cannot live in their bodies anymore. So they have to upload their consciousness to these little robots, these little teddy bears. So there is no more bodies. So in my game, I eliminate bodies completely. So yeah, you can see how these things play on people's psyche. I think horror is a great place to explore themes like that and to understand yourself better. Alright, so this was SPLAT, a series of horror articles, and this was Inside Out, a system-neutral collection of adventures. Thank you so much for watching. This was Cozy Corner. And stay tuned for more. Thank you. Actually, in the belly of a beast, you are in its intestines. You are in its. I cannot do it.
You are in its intestines.
Okay, let's do it again. Don't quit.